friends, welcome back. So today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. We've done a tote bag, we've done some zippered pouches. So today I thought let's do a beginner friendly skirt. Very easy, it's an elasticized waist. We're not using a pattern, so I'm going to show you exactly how to measure it out, and you can whip it up in about 20 minutes. So follow along with me and we can get our skirt done. What I've got in front of me is I've got some fabric. I think I have about 3 meters here. It really depends how tall you are. So you're going to measure yourself, measure the length that you want, and then you're going to know exactly how much fabric you're going to need. But if you're going to go and purchase it in advance, I would probably get 1.5 meters, maybe 2 meters, just in case. I've also got some elastic. This is a 20 millimeter, so 2 centimeter width. You can have a bit of a thicker one if you wanted, but bear in mind that sometimes that can fold around your waist. It can fold in half. So I like a 20 millimeter one. So usually comes in a packet of, I think, 1 meter, 3 meters, 5 meters. So just see what you need and get what you want. Now, the great thing about this skirt as well is there's no particular size. So if you have a very tiny waist, then you can trim off part of it if you want. Otherwise, it does gather, so it will bring it in. If you're like me and a little bit bigger around the waist, then this will definitely fit you as well. So we're going to just be basically cutting 2 panels of fabric, putting them face together, stitching down the sides, and then we're going to gather it around the waist so it will fit nearly all sizes. And then if you wanted it even bigger, you want it more gathered or whatever it is, you can add a 3rd panel and then just stitch it all together. So this is our 20-minute skirt. Let's get to it. Okay, so this is what we're going to do to measure ourselves. So grab a tape measure, and you can either choose to do it in inches or centimeters, but I'm going to do it in centimeters. So feel where you want it to sit. So I like it to sit about here. So when I go like this, I can feel the crease, and that's my waist. So I can feel that fold. So if you wanted it to sit lower, you can do that. If you want it to sit higher, you can do that. So just pick where you want it to sit. I'm going to have mine sit here. So I'm going to take my tape measure, and I'm just going to let it drop to about, I want it about knee length on me. So it drops down. So feeling there is about 50 centimeters for me from my waist to my knee. Then I want to add a bit more onto that. I'm actually going to make it 55 centimeters so that I know it actually does sit exactly on my knee. And then I'm going to add 10 centimeters, so 65. I'm going to go with 65 centimeters. It does seem long, but just remember we're going to be creating a seam at the bottom, and then we're going to have our seam at the top, which we're folding over, and we're going to be threading our elastic through. So I always say start with more, because if it does end up too long, you can always chop it off at the bottom, but you can't add anything to it. So for me, I'm going to go with 65 from my waist down. It goes past my knee. That gives me enough for my waist seam, and then also my hem at the bottom. So in terms of the fabric amount that I need, I'm going to need 2 panels of fabric. So when I measure my fabric, I've got 1 panel at 65, I've got a 2nd panel at 65, so that is 130 centimeters. So I need to ask for 1.30 meters at the fabric store, or like I said, if you're taller, just grab a bit more. So whatever your length is, make sure that you are having the right amount of fabric. I add a bit more on. So if I went for 1.30 meters, I'd probably go 1.50 meters just to be sure. And then if I've got a bit left over, I can probably make a little purse out of it. You know, so there we go. So do that, measure yourself, get yourself a pen and paper and write that down as well. Okay? the next thing, we need to know how much elastic we need for our waist. So I've got my piece of elastic going by that spot on my waist that I'm comfortable with. Pop it around. Now it's up to you, this is completely up to you what you're comfortable with. Now at the moment I don't want anything too tight around my waist. I've got a bit of a sore stomach, so you know, women, you know, you get it. Yeah, so I don't want anything tight. So I'm going to make mine a little bit loose. So I'm going to measure it to there, and then, so I need that amount, and then I'm going to reduce that by 10 centimeters so that the elastic does go tight around my, like it pulls the elastic, but it's not too tight that it's uncomfortable. But you want it so it's not going to fall down, because the elastic can become loose over wear, and then you don't want it to become too loose that it doesn't sit comfortably either. So whatever your waist measurement is, find your little spot on your elastic and then reduce it by 10 centimeters, and then that's what you need to cut off. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so what I've done is I've laid my fabric out flat, and so I've just taken my tape measure and measured from the top along down to where I want my 65 centimeters. I put a little mark with my pencil on there and on the other side as well, and now I have my ruler nice and flat, and that's going to go straight across. I can cut straight across in one line. So where did I put my rotary cutter? There it is. Now you can use a rotary cutter or you can use scissors. It's up to you. If you are using scissors, draw the pencil line straight across, but I've marked it and I know where I'm going. So I'm going to cut my first panel. That's my first panel. You can see that. So I need 2 of these at 65 centimeters. So go ahead and cut 2 panels at whatever length you need. And I'll meet you back here. Okay, so you've got your 2 panels. You want to open up your panels, and you want to lay them faces together, so right sides together. Make sure, if you have a directional fabric like mine, see how my birds all go in one direction? So I want to make sure that when I put them together, they are the right way up. I don't want one panel one way and the birds on the other panel the wrong way. Okay, so just keep an eye on your directional fabrics and lie them right sides together. Then your side seams, just line them up at the top there. Make sure it's even all the way down. So I've still got my selvage on, so your fabric selvage, I've still got that on there, and that's fine. Don't worry about cutting that off. No one's going to see it. That's going to help me have a nice seam. So now put them together and pin down one side. I don't know where my pin cushion's gone. Oh my God. I'm going to have to just use my little teapot. So pinning one on the top, and then you want them, you don't need too many, you just need it to hold together. Pin it all down one side and then all down your other side as well. And then I'll meet you over at the machine. Okie dokie. So you've pinned your panels right sides together. So what we want to do is maintain a 1.5 seam allowance straight down. Now I just measured mine and I can see that my selvage, including the little pinholes, is 1.5. So I'm going to follow that line straight down. Have a look at your own selvage and just see where yours lines up. If you want to take your seam in a little bit more and make it a 2 center seam allowance, just so that you know that you have covered that area and you won't have any selvage showing, you can do that, because like you've probably seen, once you put your panels together, we have a lot of wiggle room here. So do whatever is comfortable for you. Okay, so I'm just using my normal machine foot, nothing special. So I'm going to pop my fabric down under there, and my needle is lined up into the middle of the foot, which when I line it up with my metal plate on the machine, I can see my 1.5, so I'm going to maintain that there. Starting as we always do, pop your needle down, remove your first pin, and we're going to do a forward and back stitch like always. And that's going to secure our thread in place. And then we're going to go straight down. So just more straight stitching, which is great for you beginners. Now, if you feel okay with this, you can fast forward this part of the video. If you want to watch it all, you can. I'm going to skip a bit anyway. So make sure you're taking your pins out as we go in a straight line, maintaining your 1.5. Do this on both sides and I will meet you back over at the cutting table. Okie dokie, so we've done our side seams. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the ironing board and we're going to press our seams open. So if you just open your fabric and then you can see your side seam and just pull it open like that. So you're going to just press that open with the iron. You're going to do that on both sides. What we're also going to do when we're at the ironing board is we're going to fold the top of our work over 1/2 centimetre like that, and we're going to press that 1/2 centimetre the whole way round. So I'll meet you over at the ironing board and I'll show you how to get started. Right, so I've just slipped my whole fabric on over my board so that when I pull it over, it comes around the board. So like I said, we want to just press our seams open. You don't need to iron this heavily. So just pop that open as it is. Because I've still got my selvages attached, these are not going to unravel. That's the good thing about it, having a selvage. It's not going to unravel as I wash it because the selvage reinforces that edge of the fabric. But if you're not using a selvage and you've cut fabric, you're going to need to do a zigzag to stop it from fraying when you wash it. So my advice is leave your selvages on. So we press that there. Then, like I said, we want to do a 1/2 centimetre. I'm just eyeballing it. I'm not measuring it. So it doesn't have to be exact. So 1/2 centimetre, roughly 1/4 of an inch. So I'm folding that over like that. And then I'm going to press that. Keep your fingers out of the way. If you've got a steam iron, just be really careful because that steam, when that comes out full blast and you accidentally steam your fingers, ooh, you don't forget it. Trust me, you never forget when you've done that. So do that edge, move it over a little bit, and then line up this next bit, just eyeballing it. There we go, and pressing that. So do that the whole way round the top of your fabric, and then I will meet you back over at the table. Right, so you have now done your 1/2 centimetre folded sort of top hem or seam at the top of your fabric. We want to now know where we're going to put our waist elastic. So what I do, and you don't have to do it this way. If you know another way, then go with whatever's comfortable for you. But what we're going to do today is I'm going to start where my side seam is, and I'm going to lay my elastic in line with where that fold, the edge of the fabric has been folded over. So I'm going to line it up with that piece of folded fabric there. And then I'm going to take my elastic with the fabric and fold the whole thing over. So when I lie that flat, I can feel the elastic inside there, and then I can feel about a half a centimeter or a quarter of a centimeter of fabric that does not have any elastic under it. And that's where I'm going to pin. So I'm going to pop my pin in there like that. And the reason I'm doing that is so, as we can see, my elastic can still move in that channel. We're creating a channel, I guess, for our waistband. So, leaving your elastic in as a guide, just fold your fabric over, and then when you place it down, you should be able to feel your elastic inside plus about half a centimeter or a quarter of a centimeter. You don't want anything more than half a centimeter because you don't want too much extra fabric either side of the elastic. You still want it to be able to move through, but also you don't want it so tight that it doesn't move. So doing that, bringing your fabric over and feeling for that elastic, pin your fabric down the whole way around. You'll have to pull your elastic through as you go because remember your elastic is a lot shorter than your fabric. So once you've pinned a few down like that, just pull it through so you're still maintaining that guide. Do that all the way around, and I will meet you back at the machine because what we're going to do then is an edge stitch where we only stitching along the edge to create our seam and our waistband there. So I'll see you soon. Alrighty, so you should have created your waistband. Now if I measure my waistband, mine is approximately 2.5 centimeters, just under 2.5 centimeters in width. And I know that my elastic can thread through and move about freely. So if you need to adjust any areas or if you want to measure again before we sew, that's absolutely fine. Go ahead and do that. Now, to get started, I'm going to start where my side seam is, but I'm not starting right on it because we have to thread our elastic through. Okay, so I'm actually going to start here, so probably maybe 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters down. I might make that 2 centimeters because it'll be 2 centimeters on each side. We're going to leave a nice gap for us to thread through. So I'm going to start about here. So I'm going to line it up, and we're just doing an edge stitch. We're not doing a 1.5 seam allowance because remember your elastic is, if you got the 20 millimeters, that's 2 centimeters. So you've got half a centimeter in which to sew on, and we want to try and stick as close to the edge as we can but without going off it. So we probably only want to sew about a quarter of a centimeter. So I'm lining mine up about there in line with where I've popped my pin, because I know that when I put my pin in my fabric it was not going through the elastic, so I know I have room to play with. So starting as we always do with our needle in, I'm going to take my pin out. We're just going to do our slow forward stitch and a back stitch. What I've actually lined it up with as well is there's a little gap in your foot. So this plastic part here, there's a gap between the plastic and the metal. So the edge of my fabric actually lines up with the edge of that plastic, which means that my needle is about 1/4 of a centimetre in. So if I follow that the whole way round, I won't have any problems. So nice and slow. So this is something that you do want to do quite slowly, because you do want to make sure that you're watching and maintaining that amount, because what you'll find is if you don't follow that and you go to thread your elastic through, it won't go through and it won't sit flat, and then you will just be uncomfortable. So just holding your fabric down and just following that line slowly. I'm speeding mine up a little bit so you don't have to watch me for 10 hours. So there you go. So you do that, follow that all the way around, maintain that 1/4 of a centimetre, and then when you get to where you started, so you left yourself about 2 centimetres in, you want to finish about 2 centimetres before your seam. Okay, and then we're going to put our elastic in that gap and thread it through. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet you at the end. Rightio. So I have stitched around and created my waistband, and I've left myself a gap here. So this is where we're going to thread our elastic through. So what I want to do is, where did I put it? There it is. I got a big pin. So this is a big nappy pin that I bought. I specifically use these because they're nice and big. So any large safety pin, but I like these big ones. And you want to pop the pin on one end of your elastic. Actually, I might put it through twice like that. Weave it on. I find if I put it there, it's a bit more reinforced and it comes through easier, because this is actually going to help us weave it through. What I want to do as well is I want to make sure I know where my end is, because you don't want the end ending up inside your waistband somewhere and then you can't find it, because remember your elastic is shorter than your fabric, and we're gathering the fabric over our elastic. So I'm going to pop a pin. So I'm just going to pin it down here like that. Oh, there we hang on. Try that again. There we go. So that's attached to my fabric, and keeping it as flat as you can, because you don't want it twisted. Put your pin into your waistband, and you're going to need to give it a bit of a jiggle, and you can start pushing it through. There you go. So you can thread your fabric onto it, holding your pin and just pulling your fabric back. And now your elastic is going through nice and flat. So we'll do that again. We're going to thread that on, holding the top of our pin and just pulling our fabric back. And the more fabric we get on here, you just might need to maneuver it a little bit slowly and just making sure that it does actually come through nicely. Oh, there. So keep doing that until you have your whole elastic through, and then I'll meet you back here as we pull it through the other side. Okay, so you've threaded it pretty much the whole way through. I've still got a little bit to go, but I thought I'd just stop here and show you that because it's bunching, which it's meant to do, but you're just going to need to give it a good pull. Pull it all the way so you can feel that running through your fingers. But make sure you're trying to hold on to where your pin is. See, I've lost my pin there as well. So threading that on, holding your pin and pulling that through. And there we are. We're almost, a strong pull. There we go. So I can see that coming out. So we can see where we pinned our elastic in place. So good thing we did that. Otherwise, if it had gone into here, we'd have to pull it all back out and start again. So my original end is coming through. Great. And then I've got that part as well. So what we're going to do now is we want to sew these two bits together. So take your pins out. Don't let go of your ends. You don't want anything being sucked up into the waistband. And you just want to lay them flat onto each other. And I'm going to put my pin in there. Just pull that through a little bit on both sides so I can see it. There we go. So I'm going to go over to the machine and sew across here. So let's go over there and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So what we want to do for this is just do a couple of forward and back stitches. So I've overlapped it probably about 1.5 centimeters, so about a 1.5, and I'm going to stitch it just straight across. So I can take my pin out and I can put that under. I'm holding my pieces. You can leave your pin until you put it under if you like, but I'm just going to do that. Make it as flat as I can. There we go. And then straight forward. I'm going to do back stitch and then a forward stitch again. Then I can take that out. And I'm going to reinforce it by doing a second row. You don't have to do that, but I'm going to. I'm just going to snip my thread so I can see what I'm doing. Get those bits out of the way. So yeah, I can see how there's still that extra length there. So I'm going to do another, just a reinforcement there. So straight down. There we go. So you have now attached your elastic for the waistband. So you can pull your fabric over and push those in so that they're going to be nice and flat. If you just give it a bit of a pull, it'll go in by itself. And then, because we've got this gap here, we want to sew straight across there. So the way we do that, because we want to keep it nice and flat, so we're going to need to just pull our elastic tight so that we can, so if we pull our fabric nice and tight like that, it flattens it. So you can see where we want to join those two together. And it actually doesn't really matter if you do accidentally sew on the elastic on this side, but we're going to try not to. So I'm going to pop that under there. So starting where I had my back stitch, put my needle down. I'm just pulling my fabric a bit taut. So start with a front and back stitch. And I'm just doing my edge stitch across there. And then there we are, back at the other side of our gap, front and back stitch. And just cut your threads off so it's nice and tidy. And there you go. All right, we are almost finished our skirt. So this part, what I want to do is I just want to reinforce my elastic in 4 little spots. And the reason for that is so that because it's a gathered skirt, what I don't want is for it to gather in, you know, in bunches on a particular spot of the elastic or the skirt. So to do this, what I do is I find my side seams, both of those side seams, pull it nice and tight like this. So when I look at it, I can see where it's got more gathers. So if I look at this side, it actually seems a bit more gathered there. So I'm just going to smooth that out a little bit and pull some of that fabric along down to the other side. I'm going to do that on both sides, because naturally as we threaded our elastic through, as we're pulling it, it's kind of gathered in one spot more than the others. So we just want to kind of make it as even as we can. It's not the end of the world, but it's just something that I like to do because I don't like to feel it gathered too much on one side. So just double checking that again. So I'm looking at both of my sides. That looks fairly even to me, or at least as even as I'm happy to bother doing it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is that side seam, we're going to pop a pin, and then with your other side seam, as we did before, just pull it nice and tight, and then hold tight where that elastic is, and I'm going to pop another pin there, and then we're going to do it front and back as well. So put your side seams together so that you can see one side and then another side. Pop your fingers in, and we're going to give it a nice pull as well. That feels pretty even. So holding our fingers on those spots, we're just going to pop a pin on one of those corners as well. Making sure that's even. There we go. Yeah, okay. And so I know that right here where that elastic is. And we're going to just put a little, sew a little tack on that spot. Nobody's even going to see it in these gathers, but what it means, it just stops all of your fabric from moving around. So go over to your machine, and starting on one of the side seams, if I can find it, there's a side seam. So you just want to do a front and back stitch, probably about 2 or 3 stitches in length, front and back on each of those 4 spots. So I'll show you how to do that. So like I said, finding a side seam and starting on that side seam. Just going to move my pin over a little bit. There we go. So I'm just going to follow the line of my seam, and I'm just going to put a couple of little tacks in there. So needle down, move my pin out. All right, so forward about 3, that'll do. Back, and then forward another 3. And that's it. Needle up. There we go. That will hold that elastic in place. So let's go to the other side seam. Just holding your elastic in place there so it doesn't move around. And then following that seam forward and then back and forward again. And there we go, out. Now do that on the other 2, the front and back, where you've pinned it as well. And I'll meet you back at the table. Yeah, okay, so I'm really happy with that. Now we can do our hem. And once we've done our bottom hem, that's it. We've got a skirt. How good's that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the ironing board because I quite like a thicker kind of border. So what I want to do is I want to fold it over probably about a centimetre and then fold it again by about an inch. So I'll come to the ironing board and I'll show you how I'm going to do that, because I'm going to press it, and once I've pressed it I can then sew it. It just makes sewing it a lot easier rather than trying to eyeball the whole thing all the way around. So let's go to the ironing board. Hello Jazzy, we've got a visitor. Oh, am I keeping you up? Come here. Oh, he's a big heavy boy. He's my big heavy boy. Oh, oh, he's a Zuki boy. He likes to come in and see what's going on. Gets up onto the table with the sewing machine. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm telling everyone your business. Yes. He likes to get up and look out at the neighbours because you can see right out this window. So that's why he comes in. Don't you? Yeah, my little sewing supervisor. Anyway, let's go do that hem. Right, so I'm just putting it over the board. So what I want to do is I want to fold it over about half a centimetre like we did with the top, and then we're going to press all the way round. Gotta wait for my iron to warm up again. There we go. So we're going to press it at about half a centimetre. You can do a whole centimetre if you want. So like we did with the top, press it half a centimetre all the way around. Once you've done the whole way round, I'm going to fold it up again to approximately an inch or 2 centimetres roughly. I'm not measuring, I'm just going to eyeball it. So when you've finished it, you should have a hem of about 2 centimetres and go the whole way round. And then I'll meet you back at the sewing machine. We are on the home stretch. How exciting! We have almost done our skirt. So, starting on a side seam, I haven't pinned my hem. You can pin or clip it, it's up to you. But I can't be bothered because I've given it a press, so I'm happy just to wing it and see how I go. Now, as we did when we put our elastic in, that's the amount of seam allowance I want on my hem. So I'm lining up my edge with the edge of my plastic on my foot again, which gives me about 1/4 centimetre. So I'm going to put my needle down like always. I know I'm like a broken record, but it's a good habit to get into. And then a back stitch again, like always, securing that in place. And then just watching as you go. Don't stress if it's not exactly straight. Nobody's going to see it. If somebody's going to be pulling at your skirt and looking at your hem, then they've got a problem. Anyway, so nice and slowly, letting that go through. Take your time and I will meet you at the end. Okay, so you've done your hem. Now you need to do, turn it the right way round. Give it a shake. There's your skirt. How good's that? Give me a sec. I'm going to put mine on. Hold on. There we go. I'm really happy with that. I could have done it a little bit tighter, but like I said, I don't want anything tight on me at the, oh, look at that. It's hot here. I've got boob sweat, and then I've got a sore stomach. So yeah, being a woman's fun, but at least I have a great skirt, don't I? So it's up to you. If you want to make your skirts a little bit tighter, you can. So just when you wrap your elastic around, see if that feels right. Take off 10 centimeters, try it again. And if you think you want it a bit tighter, absolutely up to you. But like I said, I don't want anything tight on my belly at the moment. So this is a really great skirt for here in Australia. At the moment, it's very hot. We're having our Australia Day long weekend, so people are having barbecues all over the place. So if you're going to a barbecue and you're going to be eating a lot, which I'm planning on doing tonight, I'm going to wear my skirt. Anyway, I hope you've had fun with this skirt, and I would love to see the ones that you make. So please put your designs in the comments. Let me have a look. Share the video, subscribe if you want to, share it with your friends. But this is a great beginner skirt, and I'd love to see what you guys all make. Alrighty, I'll see you next time. Bye.